Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of our Farming RPG tutorial series. So right now, we have most of the stuff ready. We're able to load up our save, clear out the obstacles, and then cultivate some of our crops. So what's next is to buy and sell things. So we want to be able to sell our harvests, and then buy more seeds, so we can grow more crops. So the main way that players sell their stuff over in Harvest Moon games is by throwing them into a shipping bin, and at a set time every day, the items will be picked up and converted into cash. So let's do that right now. Let's go over into imported assets, go into Polygon Farm, prefabs, crops, and let's get ourselves a nice little crate. And we use this as our shipping bin. Give it a box collider so we can easily adjust the height. Set the tag of item, and let's create a new folder called buying and selling. Add a C shop script for the shipping bin. Add this over here. Make this a prefab in its own right. And let's edit this. So this is going to be an interactable object, because we want the player to be able to interact with it. And since we want the item to be picked up and converted into cash at a set time each day, we'll need the integer. It's gonna be static because it's going to stay the same throughout. For now, we'll put it at 18 hours, which is 6 p.m. every day. And we'll need a list, which is also going to be static because it's not going to be affected by the scene. So every time the player throws something in, it will be added to this list. And at 6 p.m., this list is cleared and the player gets his money. So let's override the pickup function. So when the player interacts with the shipping bin, he should be holding the item he wants to sell. And then there should be a prompt. And let's the yes no prompt uimanager.instance. We want to sell and that is from getting the item slot from the hand slot. So the prompt to ask, do you want to sell this item? And then the player says yes. We'll call this function. And here we will get the hand slot, get the equip slot of item. Oh, we need to check for one thing, because the player is able to interact with the shipping bin when he's not holding anything. So the player is not holding anything, nothing should happen. Okay. Now back here, get item slot, and then we'll add this to the list. We have to clone this because it's a reference. Then we empty out the hand slot. Okay. And let's make one more function. Ship the items. This is going to be a static void because we want the shipping to also work when the player is not necessarily in the farm scene. If the player is in town or at home when the time hits 6 p.m., the items are still able to ship. Going to ship items, empty the shipping bin, and yeah. So if you were to test that out now, there wouldn't be any interaction because when I right click, it keeps the item. That's not what we want it to happen. So what we need to do is change the key binding. Instead of right clicking for the player to keep the items, let's use middle click. So let's go over to player interaction, go over to item interact, take this block of code over, and then we'll make a new function, item key. Because this item interact is going to be called when the player presses the right click. And this one should be called when the player presses the middle mouse button, which is Alfire 3. Next, player controller. Go down here, if input dot get button down Alfire 3. And we'll keep the item here. Let's try it out. I no longer keep my items from right clicking, but from the middle mouse button. But now that we have done this, you can save the game when the player is holding the item. And that triggers a bug, because now if I continue in the game, the player isn't seen holding the item, even though he is holding the item. This is because we do not call the render hand function from Inventory Manager when loading the game. So to fix this, you just need to go to Inventory Manager over in the load inventory function. Just have to render. Now if I were to continue the game and my player is holding a cabbage, you should be able to see it. Okay, let's test this thing out. Looks like there are some collider issues. Let's lower this a little bit now. Yeah, so we get the prompt. It's good. Now, let's do a little check on this. When we place our items in the shipping bin, since this is a static variable, we can't check it in the scene, so let's debug this. Yep, so we just threw 5 cabbages in here. It's great. Now let's create our currency system, the player's money. So in future, we're going to keep track of a lot more things, such as the player's money, his property upgrades, and all sorts of things. So let's create a class to handle all of that. Create a new script, player stats, not on a behavior class. This is just gonna make money as a property with a get and private set. Because we don't want other classes to just be tinkering around with the money value as and when. So we're gonna make this a property. And we need a few functions. Spend it, and do a little check. The player should have enough to spend, else it should leave an error here. Otherwise, the money should be deducted with the cost. And for this, it's gonna be earning income. Let's have this in the UI. So under our status bar, And with that, let's go to UI Manager. Then let's add a little bit. In the play stats here. So this would be our currency. It's going to be G. So player stats money, player stats stock, and assign this to UI Manager. And over in player stats, just render it. Don't forget to also render this at the start. Yep, we have 0G. Let's give this a bit more space. Yep, now that we have our money in, let's add a variable in our item data. Because all items must have a cost to them. Let's give this at 500. It will be about 200. With that, we have set some values. And now let's get to the shipping part. So in Game State Manager, we're going to use the clock update function for various things now. So it's not just our farm state. So let's move this into a different function. Update farm state. We'll need to update our shipping state. That way our code is much neater. Then we just have to check. Oh, yeah. Need the timestamp. The timestamp is the shipping bins out to ship. So if it's exactly 1800 hours, it's going to ship the items. So how are we going to ship the items? We need to calculate every item in this list and then multiply the item by the quantity, and then we add them together. So let's create a function for that. Create a loop. Will be the item multiplied by. Okay, now that we have this function, we calculate how much, then we ship the items. I will earn the money to receive, and we empty the shipping bin in the clear function. So that way it resets. Okay, let's try this out. The player has no money now until it reaches 5 p.m. and then bam. So the item has been shipped. So each cabbage is 500, so 5 times 5, you get 2500, as it should be. But the problem is we can't save this yet, so we should be able to save and load this money. And to do that is pretty simple. All we need to do is go to our game save state, add money, add this to the constructor. Then over in game state manager, we'll just money to the constructor. Up money. And now let's go back to player stats. We need a way to load this up. Call this load stats. But now we only have money to load up, so we'll take in the money parameter. And then set the money to money. And then render. Now that we have that, let's go in the load save. save dot money. Now this sleep is nice. With that, we are done with our selling. Let's get to buying. And we'll do that primarily by shops. Let's go over to our town. Let's make this little thing a shop. So let's have this little guy be our shopkeeper. We don't want him T-posing, so for now let's just make him take the player's controller. By default it's just idle, so he won't be T-posing at least. Now, how Harvest Moon games differentiate between the character and buying is that there's a little counter that the person will be behind. So let's put a little table. This will be our shop table. And this will be our shop. So now let's go to script. Create a new class, shop. We need a list. And it's going to be shop items. It's public. And we'll have a function to purchase. It's going to be static because you don't really need data to be in the scene to purchase things. I'm going to take in the item data. We're going to use these two to calculate the total cost and then deduct the money accordingly. So that works is total cost times quantity. And then if the player have it, I'm going to spend it. So let's create a new item slot data, the information that we have. And then we will need to send this thing over to our player's inventory. And to do that, we need to go to Inventory Manager. We have hand to inventory, inventory to hand, and now we need a shop to inventory function. Going to be a lot like the hand to inventory. We just have to take all of this, yoink it here. This takes in the item slot data, but we'll need to change quite a bit here. We don't really need this first part. Instead, we can just do a simple ternary operator by checking if the item slot to move is a tool. It's a tool, it's going to be the tool slot array. If not, it's going to be an item slot array. Now there is no such hand slot, so we just have to change this to item slot to move. There's no need to empty it because there is no hand. Yep, that should be about it. In shop, we can just shop to inventory this, the purchase item, and yeah, should be about it. Let's do some tests. So let's over in shop table, let's do our shop, set the type to item. For now, let's set the item, just for testing purposes, to cabbage seeds. And then, if the player right clicks on this, just for testing purposes, we will purchased our item 2. See if it works. Gonna right click. Yeah, so I can purchase my cabbage seeds. So let's implement this in our UI. So now when the player right clicks on the shop, there should be a shop screen. Oh, let's do that right now. Yeah, so I'll make this a prefab shop entry. Going to 5 of this. Okay. And then we'll need a new class under UI for the shop listing. Drag this to the prefab. Begin the thumbnail. So each listing takes in the thumbnail, the name, and the cost. Then we call item data by itself. Then we create a new function called display. Very much like our inventory slot class, as you can see. But instead it's going to take in the item data. Set the sprite to item data thumbnail. For the cost, it's going to be the cost plus G. Now we need a class that will handle all of these shop listings. So let's create a new script. Same thing under UI. Shop listing, we drag it here. So this class will handle the UI aspect of our shop. Now we aren't always going to have these 5 entries, right? How it's going to work, it's going to take in the list of the shop items from the shop class, and then it's going to instantiate a shop entry for every listing. Yeah. So what we need is the game object of the shop listing. And then we need the grid. We're going to instantiate on. And let's create a function to render our shop. First, we need to reset this. So if there are already children on this, we have to destroy all of them. And then after we reset this, we can create a new listing for every item. We're gonna instantiate it and then get this as a reference as listing game object. And we're going to get component listing. Then we display item there. Now in UI Manager, And then we just have to put it here. Okay, so now that we have this to render the shop, we also need a option to open up, because by default this game object is set to false. Don't forget that. And shop, and it's gonna take in the same list, item data, items, and then it's gonna take the shop listing manager, its game object, that's set it active, and it's gonna render it. So now over here in shop, open up the shop, see if it works. Oh, before that, let's assign it. So this shop should sell some seeds, hybrid seeds, and tomato seeds. Let's visit this new shop. Yep, so it opens the shop window. And now, if I want to buy them, I should click them, and then a window should open up asking me how many of this I want to buy. So let's do that. Call this the confirmation screen. Should be a prompt. Buy item. And there should be a image. So our confirmation screen is going to have the following components. So there's a prompt to ask if you want to buy this item, quantity, to add and subtract to the quantity, and then the calculation of how much money the player will be left with, and then to confirm the purchase and to cancel the purchase. And yeah, and that we'll add this confirmation screen components to Shop Listing Manager. And finally the purchase button. So we'll need two functions. First is to open a confirmation screen. This is the initial one. And then we need a function to update all the changes to the confirmation screen. So let's render confirmation screen open. So we need some variables to keep track. Item to buy. And the quantity. So when the player first clicks on a shop listing, he's basically selecting it. He selects the item to buy, so we set the item to buy to the item. The quantity by default is always going to be 1. After that, it's going to render the confirmation screen. First, to render the confirmation screen is going to be set active. Let's assign these things first. Screen, amount, quantity, calculation, purchase. Okay. And then we set the confirmation text by item.name. And then the quantity text is the quantity. And then the cost. It's item to buy dot cost multiplied by the quantity. And then we display that minus the cost. So now we can, it's going to be the player's money, the initial one, and then how much the player will have left. But before we render the cost calculation text, we have to make sure the player has enough money first. So if player money left is below 0, then display instead insufficient funds. And then we're not going to let the player purchase it, and we're going to return. If not, I'm going to make this interactable. And yeah. Okay, next is the add and subtract functions. Add and subtract. For the player to buy anything, it always has to have a minimum value of 1. So quantity cannot be below 1. Then we render again. And finally, to confirm and cancel the purchase. Confirm purchase. So everything is good and the player confirms the purchase. It's going to be item to buy and the quantity. And then it's going to close the confirmation screen. And then close up the confirmation screen. Now let's move on to the shop listing. So much like our inventory slot, we need these things. As for the on pointer enter, we can just move this, copy this whole cell. Don't forget Unity Engine event systems. Data. To move the item info button, to move this outside. And this little exit button, we don't really need it anymore. Now in UI Manager, we have to change this. First we need a little game object, item info box. Because we need to enable and disable this now, since it's outside. There's a header. Let's implement this first. Drag this item info box. Yeah. And then on start, here we put the item info box, set div, because when there's nothing, it should not show. And if it's not, then we can set it active. Just in case in the start. Play item info now. Yeah, it works. Just close that. Yep, it works. Don't forget that we need a exit button for the shop. For that, It sets the shop to inactive. Yeah. Now let's get over to clicking on exit. So on exit, it's gonna be now. And click should open the information screen. I'm gonna take in the iPad, assign the buttons. So in our confirmation screen, add quantity, add, subtract, confirm, cancel is cancel. Yeah, so now I am able to purchase things. If I buy too much, I can't buy it anymore. And yeah, that's it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.